want folks to know who I am. I'm Beckey Dennison. I work at Venice Community Housing, but I worked with most folks around this circle for a long time in the Skid Row community on a variety of issues related to community-based safety and fighting against other people's versions of safety. And so I'm really happy to be here. And
Joan, you have to turn it off.
I also did not know that it was the anniversary of Michael's passing today. I also worked with Michael, I think, almost from the day he got to Skid Row. And he was living at the Weingart Center at the time, and I drove him home from somewhere. And I had worked at the Weingart Center way back when. So one of our first conversations, if not our first conversation, was about public safety from the viewpoint of service providers, and that they were also perpetuating some of these really awful practices against the community. So thank you for that reminder and memory, and honor him tonight. So we're just going to have folks introduce themselves, and as part of your introduction, if you can just share the beginning piece of this, which is what are the community practices, norms, that you see that generate safety from your perspective, and or some of the work you've done to advance community-based level of safety. And both of these folks said they didn't want to go first, so I'm going to start over and then Charles.
Can everybody hear? Because we have a microphone if you want.
It might be good to use the mic.
Yeah.
It's better to use the mic? Yeah, because I can put this one on too. This is Tiffany Rose's place. I don't know where she is. She hasn't shown up, so now she's going to the mic. And this is the volume. Oh my God.
Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Is that good?
Can you hear me now?
I think so.
You got a rapid 3 minutes.
Okay. I get extension on the time, okay?
No, don't do that.
Starting right. Now I'm gonna be brief, since I'm going first. So my name is Charles Porter, and I work for United Coalition East Prevention Project, which is a drug prevention program in Skid Row. And our focus really is just community engagement, just to try to improve the neighborhood, partner with the folks that are there. I think for us, the discussion around safety, one thing I highlighted is the ability to listen to folks and partner with the community and find out, you know, what the real issues are. And so that's what we try to do in our work, and just try to expand all the positive things that are in Skid Row. I've been working there since 1999, and a lot of projects we've done over the years, some exciting new ones and some ones that we reflect upon. But we're not here to talk about me. So I made a couple of notes in regards to, well, I think your question is, what can you...
What's your vision and or work to advance community safety?
Okay, so in my work and my vision in regards to safety, I jotted a few notes. One is some words that I'll highlight a little bit more in the rest of my 1.5 minutes. Culture, respect, peer connections, engagement, patience, tolerance, the ability to listen, and raising awareness. So for me, culture is essential in just connecting with the humanity of people. And Skid Row is a predominantly African-American community. So for me, it's connecting with folks, with my people, and also raising awareness about who we are, what our place in the world is. And once you have that sense of connection and mutual respect, you have a higher level of dignity, and it affects how people behave around you. You know, I mean, I've experienced things where we do community events and people apologize, you know, because they're like, oh man, my bad, I didn't know y'all was gonna be here, we're gonna take that across the street, you know. And so that comes out of respect, but, you know, to build that respect, there also has to be these peer connections. You know, when you have people that have no connection or understanding of the community and they got all the answers, you know, that doesn't enhance safety. That makes things actually, you know, dangerous and less safe. Example I want to highlight also is when we started doing movies in the park. the idea was, oh, if you do movies in the park, you gotta fill the park with police officers, and you can't do events at night in Skid Row. And the first night, the park was full of police officers and nobody came, you know. And then the captain was like, oh, we got too many cops here. We gotta send them away. But by the end of the first year, the first series, there were no cops, no security guards. Because we told them in the beginning, we don't need cops and security guards. This is a community event that people want. You know, the community help set up, they help clean up, they help maintain, you know, civility, because it's their neighborhood. And I think a lot of times in Skid Row, people don't see the people as a resource. You know, they're afraid of people because they don't know the people, and they're disconnected. And I think that disconnection and that fear creates an environment where it's unsafe.
Yeah, for this first one, let's just go around so that everyone can hear from all of you, and then we can get into some background.
She said, you didn't hear the last part, she said go around that way. Hi, I'm Sarah. This feels really loud, but so my name is Sara Shortt, and I'm not here, to be very clear, representing the agency that I work for. This is this is my own opinion, but it's definitely very much informed by the work that I've done, which is to run a homeless outreach program on Skid Row. And I've learned so much about public safety and have been able to formulate so many observations. And so I'm so glad I have a platform to actually talk about it now. In terms of, I have to piggyback on what Beckey said with her conversation with Kevin Michael, that because part of your question was, what are you doing around public safety issues? And so I'd like to think one of the things I'm trying to do is, kind of re-educate and encourage the service providers to rethink their definition of public safety, because it's absolutely true that it goes to the cops like this. Anytime anybody, says the word safety, it immediately goes to law enforcement. And yet, people in social services need to understand that many people feel it's the opposite. Many people feel far less safe with the presence of law enforcement. So it's just like, boy, you guys got it backwards here. And so, so that's one thing, I'm working to do. In terms of kind of now piggybacking off of what Charles said, I think that community public safety is very much about mutual aid. That, to put it more simply, it's like we got each other's backs, right? It's about watching out for each other, and it only works with real community, with real connections. But you don't need someone else from the outside, watching over you to, ensure your safety. As a matter of fact, it can be your buddy next door in the tent next door, or the guy who walks by every day is checking on you. And I just see that so much. Skid Row is all about mutual aid. It's all about, these informal, relationships of, I'll watch out for you, and I know you'll watch out for me, And I've been really, really noticing that, and it's not that is not how it is in most neighborhoods, unfortunately. I guess we're going.
It's deep. Hi, my name's Alisa Orduna. I'm kind of like Sarah. I'm trying to figure out what role am I here in tonight. So I'm just honored to be here. I currently work for City of Santa Monica. I used to work for City of Los Angeles. But where I go back and thinking about this conversation, I go back to the neighborhood I grew up in, Inglewood. And to me, the sense of safety was really knowing everyone on your block, knowing everyone in your community, knowing we just knew each other and we looked out for each other. And to me, it's elements of Black culture that I think, have always been that protective space for me no matter where I go, and trying to align with people that were like-minded. And it is about knowing who you are, so it's also as an individual, knowing your history, knowing who your grandparents are, knowing where you came from, what were the struggles that they went through, because then you're not at risk of someone else trying to define you or trying to limit you and push you out of the space. So you just walk in a different way where you own the space. And once you own the space, people kind of cater around you and respect you. They may challenge you, well, they will challenge you, I won't say they won't, but it's really starting with knowing yourself, having your strong family and support networks, and then being involved in the community and creating other safe spaces. I think in between, or before I started with the mayor's office, I opened up a place in Inglewood called Cali Rose, which was like an art space like this. And I think we need more spaces like this where people could come, you could vet, if you code switching, you can just be yourself for a moment and then you're ready to step back out into the world. So I'll just add that to it.
Excuse me. Good evening, everybody. My name is General Jeff. Let me give the short version. Let's see. When I first came to Skid Row, first of all, I'm born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, so I'm a homegirl, Angelino. But when I first moved to Skid Row in 2006, I already knew that there was this overwhelming negative energy in Skid Row, and so when we talk about public safety, what was, and specifically in Skid Row, there was a total lack of positive energy. So that meant that there was a high concentration of negative energy. And so as a community activist, it was very important for me to connect with the people that were already putting in the work. I got a lot of folks around this room right now. And we wanted to start to create positive energy to automatically offset that, because in college, studying physics, positive energy and negative energy can't coexist in the same space at the same time. Anywhere there's a presence of negative energy and positive energy in the same place, negative energy automatically cancels itself out. So it's real simple, and then applying that towards Skid Row with zero funding and zero resources. In 2007, we started Skid Row Residents Positive Movement. Specifically, myself, OG, we got other people in the room, but in 2008, myself and OG, we created Operation Facelift Skid Row, a cleanup campaign, because the community feels much safer when it's cleaner. And there was a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance from the city, from the government, and so we continued to push forth because we felt that to empower the people with a do it yourself mindset, do for self mindset, excuse me. And that's what we've been pushing to this day. And so, I just want to establish that. And then also, too, this whole side of this wall is about the Skid Row Neighborhood Council formation effort. Props to Catherine Nini's in the crowd and a whole bunch of other formation committee members in the room as well. And so we're still fighting to this day. And so through a creation of a Skid Row Neighborhood Council, we felt there are natural city resources that will come to Skid Row under the tutelage of the voice of we the people of Skid Row. And from that, we can help do more things to keep our community safe.
Pastor Q from the Church Around Wall, Skid Row, Creating Justice LA, and Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice. When I think about public safety, I think about holistic, a situation or community that's healthy, where every aspect of a person can be addressed. So spiritually, physically, mentally, socially, all of it, culturally.
Hello, my name is Amara Ononiwu, and I'm really just honored to be here. I'm by far probably like the newest face. So when I think about community safety, I did jot down some notes, and a lot of it is centered around listening. So really to piggyback on what Charles was saying, it's listening and assessing what is working from the people who are being impacted. And that's a lot of what my role in the community, I've taken it upon myself. Like, my small role is to challenge silos and challenge disconnection and imposing of thought onto peoples that are yeah, just in imposition of thought and roles and things like that without actually being connected to someone. So I see community safety as really being connected to one another, to being engaged, citizens, having an energized and vibrant community that participates. One of my first introductions to Skid Row was actually through the All Artists Festival. And I think having spaces like that where people have creative outlets and can showcase and have community pride is really important when it comes to the welfare of a community. Because I also think holistically safety is really involving the welfare of the community. So it really is addressing not just lack of injury, but like our needs being taken care of.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is General Dogon. I'm a civil and human rights organizer with the Los Angeles Community Action Network. Downtown, particularly Skid Row, is very special to me. My parents met downtown. I was raised up downtown. Matter of fact, me and my father used to live in the El Rey Hotel, which is now the Wine Gardens. And so I got my first job downtown, got into my addiction downtown with the prison, right? And so to make a long story short, when I got out of prison, you know, downtown wasn't what it used to be. It was right smack in the middle of gentrification. And so I got involved with the policing in the community because it seemed like to me that was the main force that was pushing. I didn't really understand the socio-economic and the politics that was behind it. But once I got involved, going to LA Can, got involved, that's where I pretty much found out what the whole thing was all about, right? And so that's where I also met Michael Keys. And me and Michael Keys actually was one of the ones that kind of like put the Community Watch program together. He was a lawyer from, I think, New York University, and I was a jailhouse lawyer, right? And so we used to get into arguments about who was right too. But nevertheless, so got involved with the work, and been about 13 years now, still involved with it. The main goal is to keep a check and balance on the city and the policing and hold them accountable. And right now what we're trying to do is create a citywide movement because we see a citywide attack. You know, all our communities are united in some way and they all being gentrified in some type of way. And it's a push to move us out of the city. And so I'm going to stop right there.
Good evening. Christopher Mack. And I actually am a community outreach worker with Wesley. We've been here since 2003. And I've learned a lot of things, and I've got a chance to be involved in a lot of the things that, you know, some of the people in here are about. And so I like that's a part of the community for me. You know, it's just the people who are out here doing the battle and out here addressing the issue. But when we talk about safety, it's hard to talk about safety at a group of people who've never had safety in the whole system. And that goes back years, hundreds of years. There are people who have never had the idea what safety could be or would be. Another thing about Skid Row is most people don't understand there are 3 Skid Rows here. One is the tip, one is the service provider, one is the Skid Row Housing and Trust. So when you talk about safety, what are you really talking about? And when you talk about Skid Row, what are you talking about? And first of all, Skid Row is a condition that has been brought on by the dominant culture, by the main culture, who refuse to accept responsibility for this egregious lack of care for human beings. When I went to the LA Can and they had the United Nations, they came and said, this is a human rights issue. But guess what? How can you deal with a human rights issue if you don't see the people that you're dealing with as humans? And this is, see, some of the things is, we can't even start talking about safety until we get rid of the lies. And if my personal idea with safety is that when you start to help a person's economic growth. I've had the privilege of working on the BEST project, which means I had to go and find people who were disabled and who needed more income. And going from $200 to $850 brought about a lot of safety because a lot of people begin to participate in their own life. You're not going to get safety until you start getting a collective of people participating in their life. Safety comes from the individual. And yeah, we got to take risks because we have to go out there. And when I first started on that project, you know, I was willing to go out there and get cussed out, spit on, and hit at. But see, sometimes I take that risk every day. When I first got down here to see the condition, I cried for 2 years, from 2003 to 2005, wondering what was going to happen to the people. But when I saw people start to do for themselves and get out, then I said, wow, Chris, I'm going to school. Chris, I'm dealing with 2 years of substance abuse. Chris, so, you know, I got to sit here and talk in this one. Let's get real.
My name is Hayk Makhmuryan, and I am an advocate for arts and cultural spaces in Skid Row, and you can mostly find me in Studio 526. And safety, public safety for Rio. The main thing that I think about first for me is longevity and consistency of both geographically, time, you know, if fact that someone knows that they can go to LA Can at 6 p.m. on Wednesdays and there's going to be the Little Clinic over there, or another, whatever else, Church of Nazarene after that at 7 p.m. These things are so important to what public safety can look like. I think another piece that, just riffing off of Chris, that is so important is to, in community safety, public safety for Rio, would be to know that there are so many things that are worth defending. In a large sense, I would say defending one's humanity, and then defending that. And I think too often within Skid Row, we talk a lot about what things we want to build, what things we want to do to improve, which perhaps within the improvement piece that we can talk more about, but what things that are there are not given as much attention, definitely not in the mainstream conversation. Amongst us there is. And I think what we all know is that there are so many things that are there every day, every moment, that are worth defending, that are like, when you open the parenthesis of the interrelations of different people, the connections, the mutual aid that was mentioned. I know I only have 1 minute, but I have something that I wanted to just read a piece from. This is something I found years ago, and how to build community, how to strengthen communities, something from Midwest. And it struck me at the time as just something that was a cool roadmap, but now I think the context within which this can be seen is, I'm going to read out real quick, and those folks who work in Skid Row, see if you can hear something that you know is not happening in Skid Row, and folks who are from outside of Skid Row, see if you can, how many things actually do happen in your community. And these are things how to build community. Turn off your TV, leave your house, know your neighbors, greet people, look up when you're walking, sit on your stoop, plant flowers, use your library, play together, buy from local merchants, the cake guy, share what you have, help a lost dog, take children to the park, OG, honor elders, support neighborhood schools, so many informal schools that we got, fit it, even if you didn't break it, fix it, even if you didn't break it, have potlucks, garden together, pick up litter, read stories aloud, dance in the street, talk to the mail carrier, listen to the birds, put up a swing, help carry, I don't know, do we put up swings? Maybe we should. Help carry something heavy, barter for your goods, start a tradition, ask a question, hire young people for odd jobs, organize a block party coming up in a couple of weeks. Bake extra and share, ask for help when you need it, open your shades, sing together, share your skills, take back the night, turn up the music, turn down the music, listen before you react to anger, mediate the conflict, seek to understand, learn from new and uncomfortable angles, know that no one is silent, though many are not heard. Work to change this. I think this is a description of what Skid Row that we all know that's there.
So hi everybody, my name is Steve Diaz. I'm with LACAN as well. Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad Hayk brought it there, right? Because for me, community safety or safety overall starts with community. You can't talk about sort of being able to control the space you're within if you're not talking about how to build it and how to enhance it and how to transform it. And I think that's the work that we're all talking about in terms of that, whether vis-a-vis the park, whether vis-a-vis the corner, whatever it may be. So for me, I feel like community safety starts with that ability. It starts with the ability to have voice, starts with the ability to have decision, and starts with the ability to you and others recognizing the power that you have and the destiny of that space. Because if you can't control that space, you can't be safe in that space. Safety is not about sort of a harm like someone else said. Safety is about sort of how do we build together and how do we create that infrastructure that brings us all safer together, not just about an individual. So I'll close it out on time and pass it back to the moderator.
That's amazingly good on time. So just a couple of things I do want to come back to because this next question is going to be a little bit different, but a few things that people said that tie together really are to listen and look and really identify community strengths and then invest in those strengths versus a lot of the investment we've seen has been to tear apart those strengths or devalue. And I think about the original cleanup crew versus the cleanup crew we see now. And it's like, so anyway, I hope folks will come back to that a little bit. So the next question really is, what are the biggest challenges you've seen in implementing the work that you've just described or the vision you've just described? And I hope people will add in to the piece I just said, which is, what are some of the things that have been imposed on the community that have been challenges to your vision? And I think we could, if people just want to sort of give a think, because I think if people might be able to build upon each other, so if you hear something you want to go after, just grab the mic, and if there's too many of you, we'll figure it out.
Put time in the middle.
Challenges. I think I just came from Washington, D.C. not too long ago for the Poor People's Campaign. 100 of us were arrested at the state capitol, 1,000 police officers trying to stop us from getting into the White House with Reverend William Barber. And to me, that was a microcosm of Skid Row. You can't have public safety. I think Steve kind of grazed it. You can't have public safety until you have power. And we always say, well, the power you have. Well, sometimes you don't have that power. You have power, but there's something stopping you from exercising that power. And so I thought about it a lot because I went to visit the Native American First Nation People Museum in Washington, D.C. And I went with a Native brother, and he kept saying to me, if I were you, I would not pay that ticket after we got arrested. I wouldn't pay the citation. And I was like, what do you mean? And then he goes, because we are sovereign. He goes, we don't listen to the cops. And when the cops approach us and say, who are you? I go, who are you? On my land, right? He goes, so the language I speak is the language of decolonization. So anytime we talk about public safety, oftentimes we talk about it from the perspective of the colonizer, right? So to me, the first step is to decolonize public safety, right? We have to decolonize. I talk about decolonizing religion, right? Every commentary we read for the Bible is from a European commentator, right? So we've got to do the same. We've got to decolonize public safety. The first thing that comes to your mind may be the idea that the colonizer gave you.
So most definitely, some of the challenges that I see in the work that I do. So sometimes some of the people that are directly affected do a lot of work around policing. So most definitely trying to get people involved to speak up, stand up and speak out against police. You know, sometimes take a lot of work, right? Because especially when folks that are living on the streets, because they feel that they're more vulnerable, and if they say something, they're going to be retaliated against. So, I mean, in a lot of aspects, it's true, right? And so, trying to get folks involved into the fight is a challenge. Another challenge is debunking myths and stereotypes about the community, right, and about people that's out. You know, going to meetings, you know, talking to people, you know, it seems like people's mind is stuck on one thing, right? Oh, they don't want this, they don't want that, you know. And so basically just trying to convince people that, you know, they folks do want this, do want that, right? And so those are some of the biggest challenges that I see. It goes a little deeper. I can expand a little bit more about it, but basically those are the two biggest challenges that I see.
I'll be short. I think Chris touched on it in the first question, and now Pastor Q is expanding on it. It's you know, I had a conversation a couple of days ago, but you know, I inevitably went to we live in a shit country, and I think you know, this is one way to say it, but I think it's a more eloquent way to say it, that we live under a structure that, like you say, the first thing that you think about is that unconsciously is already the language of oppression, the language of exploitation. The fact that discussing the economic system and the social props of that system, I'm talking about capitalism and racism, are things that immediately are set you apart in mainstream audiences because, oh, this is the guy that's going to say the word capitalism, you know, like, oh shit, you know. It's those are the very things. And until we're comfortable talking about those things in larger and larger audiences, then we're going to come back defending things that are about just the minimal human rights, fundamental human rights. Within arts, I just finished with that within arts and culture, I think it's a good example of how small example of how larger the issue is, where arts and culture are always asking to be defending, asked to be defending why they need to exist, and we take the bait too often. We're like, okay, you know, like, oh, because, you know, the kids, they'll be better, you know, if there's arts and culture. You know, I ask, like, you know, do you like, you know, that you have parks and you have libraries and you have popular music and you go to the movies? Do you do these things? Well, if you do these things, then arts and culture are kind of like at the core of everything. And I think that, you know, asking questions in that kind of way, I think is the beginning of kind of pushing against those challenges.
I guess I'll take it. So I was reminded earlier as we were talking, one of the greatest things I learned from Kevin Michael, may he rest in peace, was it's okay to be different. It's okay to sort of accept someone's differences as well. But that's not what is believed in when people think about public safety, right? They, instead of accepting those differences, instead of being open to learning from those differences, it's always about, no, the greater than thou. It is about, I have a greater destiny or greater being, so I can impose on X what I feel that is, right? It's that belief that led to the imposing of some of the worst policing efforts in the city of LA and Skid Row, in the name of, oh, the new people with money are scared of those folks, i.e. those black folks that live in Skid Row. It is that racist belief that allows for that to occur. So when we're talking about challenges around public safety, to me, that's one of the biggest challenges. It's the allowance of the status quo to be able to dehumanize, devalue, everything that you could think of the other. and the creation of the other, which has then been and has continuously been used as sort of the tester, the person that they're targeting, the individuals that they're going after. And that really is what sort of, to me, is one of the greatest, hardest things to overcome when you're talking about public safety.
I would like to piggyback off of, since you passed me the mic. Nah, but I got notes. But echoing just what folks said, I made a few notes, and one is institutional racism. You know, we can't, de-emphasize that, and the devaluation of Black lives, and by extension, humanity. Decision makers not being connected to the people and being afraid of the people. Lack of community control, fear to change or to challenge the status quo. And then I like what you commented on, Pastor Q, about decolonizing public safety, and what you just mentioned now, how a lot of efforts we don't really put in that context as a form of colonization, and there's these systematic efforts to force someone to be what they're not. And a lot of times, even some of the services are forcing somebody to be what they're not. And then when people don't use those services, we blame them. Oh, they're service resistant. There's a program, they don't want to go to the program, and they want to act, it's just on them. But when you don't give folks the opportunity to be who they are, acknowledge who they are, then that in and of itself is violent.
Oh, no, we got a hand over here.
Oh, you got it, all right.
Charles touched on something that made me think of, like, one of the challenges I see is like a lack of humility. People don't want to admit when they're wrong, or when they've made a decision that has marginalized someone or negatively impacted someone. There's no what we call, like, there's no, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Repentance is a good word, because it means just to change your mind, right? Like there's a lack of that by people who have the authority to do so. And in talking about getting people on board, if there's not humility in a situation, then your pride will take over, thinking that you know better than people that you're serving. And so it's going back to the listening, and again, I just want to touch on assessing what's working from the people who are actually being impacted. And humility, a lack of humility stops you from doing that, because no, I put this in place, so run with it or don't, right? And I think that in itself creates huge lapses in safety and just security of self.
I was listening, and apathy, I think, would be one of the biggest challenges. How do you win, your neighbor to see? I like what Pastor Q said about decolonizing and the language. How do you win somebody to be his best advocate? And I think the apathy that goes forth while I'm in the streets is one of the greatest challenges. It's not necessarily how are we going to show a person that it may not be his idea, but how this idea might benefit him and help him. So it's a lot of this has to do with what kind of communications are we doing. One of the things, when we were doing the Skid Row Formation Committee, we went out there and fought a hard campaign. And yet, the system, did some real illegal things. But we were also 60 votes short because of the apathy. He's involved in it, I don't want to be involved. It don't bother me. So we have to educate people, that sometimes, people don't understand something might be good for them. And I think some of that has to do with education.
So just reflecting on kind of what Pastor Q and Steve said, last week I had a chance at an event and a First Nations elder woman, clan mother, came and spoke. And when she spoke, she was very gracious and tolerant. But that night when I was, getting ready to go to bed, I was like, wait a minute. How often do I accept the fact that this is not my land? No matter how I got here, if it was forced migration, if it was seeking asylum or whatever, and how often do we ever think about it with all the battles for social justice against gentrification? It's like, in some ways, we're almost embedded in that paradigm or that colonial mindset until we recognize that this isn't even our land, and we never reconciled that. And so been sitting with that a lot, and how does that come up for me? And when I think back, particularly my time in the city of LA and even with the city of Santa Monica, it is true. You would think government's supposed to be of the people, by the people. But if we never check that decolonization about who the people are, what citizenship means, what is a stakeholder, what is a constituent, we're always going to get tripped up because we're not the people that government is seeking to respond to. And I can tell you, when you take risks, something as simple as hosting the meetings in Skid Row when we were trying to plan for the refresh spot. The first couple of months, I just did it. I didn't even tell anybody. Because I knew that if it got out there, it was like, are you wasting your time? Why are you doing that? Oh, you should be doing this. And so I think a lot of times when you work in government, you have to be real clear and constantly check yourself so that you don't get self-absorbed into the dominant narrative, and be open and be uncomfortable. Go out into community, because even though I can come into community and be of community, I'm still representing that city scent, on me. But being able to take it so that you always stay humble, and that it's not about keeping the job sometimes. Sometimes it's about getting into position and being that voice at that table, no matter how hot or uncomfortable it is. And just, I think we have to, it just goes back to saying, wow, our indigenous brothers and sisters, they're still struggling, but they're still here. And what can we learn from them? How can we ally with them? And how can we just shift it around and saying, what are those other principles that we can learn truly about community and truly be humble in the work that we do?
I'd rather go before General Jack. So back to again, sort of when you asked the challenges of the work you're doing, and I mentioned the work I'm doing is trying to have, maybe some amount of influence over how social services are provided in the community. There are just numerous challenges, I think many of which would be obvious, but the knee-jerk reliance on law enforcement, as I mentioned before, and the entrenched belief that and faith that law enforcement makes people safer. It's just like still very much a given amongst many social service providers. And part of that is because they're stuck in the paternalistic sort of old school model of we know what's best for you, which goes back to what everybody's saying about it. It needs to come, and be defined by the community and by the people who are most impacted. But I just want to give a concrete example and of a very big challenge, which is the challenge of basically kind of not having an alternative. We can say all we want, don't call the cops with this, person waving a metal rod around who we're worried is gonna, knock someone out or whatever. And with the people who want to, and maybe you can relate to, immediately address the situation, well, okay, what do we do then? And I think the more we can create other systems, restorative justice practices, or resources, for instance, or just a different type of emergency responder type, that's more community-based, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's things that have been done, that it would be much easier to sort of change the mindset, because there's a real mentality of like, well, we can't just do nothing, we need to address things right away, that's our job, we're social service providers. And I know I have very little time, but I wanted everyone to think about the 5150 process as a concrete example. It's psychiatric hold, for those of you who don't know. And there are people with psychiatric disabilities on Skid Row, as there are in every neighborhood. But it's all out in the open there, and so people want to, address it. And right now, it can be a dangerous situation, and there's no other way to do it without law enforcement. And maybe that it isn't something that we want to get away from even having to do, that in itself. That's a related thing, but I'm just saying it's an example of like when there is true danger or something that people. That's my time up. Bye. No, I can finish my sentence. Right. People feel a perceived threat in the moment. Can we create something new and different that can, help people feel safe? I mean, I'm repeating myself. Bye.
The question is challenges. I'll say it this way, a tale of two cities. On one side, you have the business sector that brings in the money and funding and investments, both local, state, federally, and internationally. They put pressure on the politicians to create the ordinances, the laws, and the structure. The politicians then invoked the Los Angeles Police Department as the first responders to sustain whatever it is that they put forth. And then you have the nonprofit poverty pimps that are pimping the system to benefit themselves. And so then all those energies create this overwhelming weight and power and influence that one fools people outside of Skid Row, and then all of that energy combines to believe in the false narratives of what Skid Row is and what Skid Row could be. And so when you have all that weight, and then we talk about the other city, which is we the people of Skid Row, with limited resources, limited confidence, to go up against all of that other powerful infrastructure, that's the most challenging component, because one, we have to build enough energy, positive energy within ourselves to boost our own confidence and self-esteem to say, yes, we can, yes, we can, yes, we can. So in a system where it's, the little engine that could, or David versus the Goliaths of the city of Los Angeles, those are the types of challenges that we're faced with on a day-to-day basis. And then intertwined with that, we have to survive on a daily basis because we're homeless and economically poor, suffer from extreme poverty, forced to live and reduced to live in inhumane conditions. And so when you have that as your playing field, who wants to play that game of chess?
Just real quick, can I get in? Yeah, I just want to say a couple things that were prompted to me by what Sara said. First of all, I think it's kind of been implied, but I want to sort of be clear. Public safety does not come from the police department, does not come from security, does not come from anything that's perceived as a security. Public safety does not come from increased laws that target individual groups. Public safety does not come from gang databases. Public safety does not come from any of that criminalizes basic human behavior. And I felt that it was really important to sort of put that out there following what Sara said, because Sara said something that was really important, where she said, when LAPD is perceived as the only solution. And when LAPD is perceived as the only solution, the reason why I would say is because that's the only solution that's been driven down our throats since the beginning of damn time. So that's the only solution that has been given all the resources in the city of LA and many other cities just like LA, to where they have cars and other entities that they just don't even use. So it's really important that we understand that. It's really important that we highlight that, because until we understand that that's the solution that's been given to us and our solutions need to be put up front, that then and there can we actually start to create public safety.
I just want to add one thing to that point, because I think it's so important. I think by the time law enforcement becomes your solution, it's almost too late in your thinking. I think one of the challenges is like the origin story, like how thinking about the conditions and what led people to be in the positions that they're in, whatever that might be, whether it's crime or a confrontation or whatever. Like I don't see enough thought put into, well, what would make a person do that? What would make a person think this way or continue this behavior, whatever it is that's perceived to be a problem. There's not a lot of evaluation of that in people, and I think that's part of the devaluing humanity, because I think we do that for ourselves. Like we all want to assess our behavior and see like how can we get better. But yeah, by the time you get to law enforcement as your line of defense, your public safety conversation is really non-existent.
I could say so much, but
Say it.
Now I'm going to pass the mic right back to you. But you know, Steve, you talked about policing as all that's been kind of legitimized. In my words, I hear it like it's legitimized. Because I think about things on the day-to-day that I see in my own neighborhood even now. And it's you know, the kids are smoking weed and seniors walking by. We just walk up and like, hey, put it away. You see Miss such and such is about to come past you. Yeah. Or even in a situation where, like, there was a person that lived with severe mental illness under me. You know, one day I knocked on the door and he was cursing up a storm, and I just took a bottle of honey. I was like, you need to add some sweetness to your tongue. And he looked at me like I was the crazy one, and I was like, but we cool. He was quiet, you know. So I think there are things that we do that just we don't talk about, and I think that quick response to policing goes back to I think what a couple people said. We got to talk about implicit bias. Why is it when a person of color is having an episode, a bad day, or severe behavior, or whatever,
Or just hanging out.
or just a coffee at Starbucks or wherever, why is it that our automatic response is this is a fear factor and I need to change behavior? I'm really afraid as we talk about gentrification and just reading, I don't read next door, I just protest it, but just when you hear the conversations even on Facebook or friends that like live in Leimert Park and other areas that are saying, new people are coming in, and now my neighbor said, you know, I can't drum on Sundays, or they called the cops on my friend who was, you know, coming over on Sunday, and I left the key underneath my mat, and next thing you know, LAPD is showing up saying someone's breaking into the house. So I think we really need to figure out how to have a conversation in these gentrifying neighborhoods around this broader issue of public safety and really talk about implicit bias and what's happening right now. You know, I remember people used to say, oh, don't worry about the elders with, you know, the overt racists because they're going to die out one day. But it's a whole new generation that's been sparked. I can't just blame Trump. I think Trump has added to it. But this has been in hearts for a long time. So how do we get to that deeper level and have those conversations?
Come on. You gotta keep it going. We're rebelling.
So yeah, I am going to move to our last question for this format. There'll be plenty of other questions of each other and from other people. Is really just what folks are seeing next. So what is the work you're doing now to overcome these challenges, advance a vision? I hope people will retouch on engaging people and shifting mindsets, because some of the reluctance to get involved, especially in challenge police, is about rightful retaliation, and we've seen that happen, and it is not a secret to anybody. But some of it is just because of the level of belief in what people see as the police's role, and that is across the spectrum. That is primarily middle class and upper class white folks calling the police wrongfully, but not only. So it's like, so I just hope some folks will talk about what that looks like and how we're doing that within our community.
Well, I think the number one thing is education, right? I said decolonize because there was something that came after that, right? We have to decolonize our minds, right? Because we now have to reimagine public safety, right? You can't reimagine public safety in the same old paradigm, right? If you try to reimagine public safety, all you're going to think is, well, what is this person who has a mental illness? There's no other way, right? Not realizing that that person got there some way, right? And it was a system that put that person there to begin with, right? So, and then when we talk about colonization, it goes back to being at Starbucks and somebody's calling the cops on you, right? The colonizers are still using the same methods, right, to continue to inflict those things, and then we buy into that. One example is that a lot of black folks supported the war on drugs because they didn't realize we were being colonized. We were using the colonizer's method to try and make ourselves free. And we, as people who are from the continent of Africa, that's not how we do community, right? The way we do community, the way African Americans do community is a colonized method. They learned that. We tried to add our own free thinking to the colonizers or the master's way of doing things. But we still are not free. We still are imagining public safety the way Massa told us to imagine public safety. We need to get out of that. And so we need to begin to reteach our people. And that's the first place. Educate our people. First of all, detox them from that whole colonized mind state. Well, police is the only way. No, it's not the only way. I've been on Skid Row, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. I've been on Skid Row pastoring for 12 years. One time I had to pick up a man who's mentally ill. Of course, I'm a man, so I have, who's probably stronger than a lot of women, right? There are women probably stronger than me, but, and I had to pick him up because he was about to fight with another guy. So I had to pick him up and bring him down the street and have a conversation with him. So that was one of the tools I have in my toolbox. But you have other tools in your toolbox that you don't think about because you only your mind always resort to the colonizer's way of doing things, right? So we have to be more creative in our thinking, but we have to decolonize our minds in order to do that.
Everything, all of that makes me think of one particular word and comes back full circle to what Charles was saying, connections, right? And I think a lot of this, it's not the answer, it's not, but it's definitely a very important beginning of how it's deliberate disconnection that's part of specifically colonizers' way of controlling. There's divide and conquer is a formula that exists for a reason because it works so well on so many different levels. And I think when I think about my involvement in the Skid Row neighborhood, it's about figuring out and understanding what is the sometimes slow process, sometimes actually just a matter of reinforcing and supporting something that's already there, but various connections that are already there and encouraging connections, various forms of connections. And lo and behold, that works again and again and again. It's like it's a kind of a if there was a what's the phrase? I forget that the whatever silver bullet. If there was a one piece there, it's about if I feel that there are 3 or 4 people that got my back in this space, I am going to be more comfortable myself. I maybe will not feel that I am so threatened that I need to react a certain way. And I think it's this connection which has everything to do with reimagining, because the normal ways of doing things are about how do I make sure that I talk less to this person, how do I make sure that my relationship is as transactional as possible so I don't have to ask this person's name. So when I call the police on them, I don't even know who they are. I don't care.
I think Charles been putting over here a manifesto on his iPad.
That's just to help me keep it brief. Y'all should be thankful I'm putting sound bites. But I am going to tell like 3 stories, though, so Tom be lenient with the flags. Yeah, so I just, jotted a few.
In case you don't get to 3.
Okay, I'm gonna hit the sound bites first. So I put equity is a big one. You know, there's a lot of discussion around equity and what that really means. Hiring community folks, promoting cultural traditions, community engagement, activated community spaces, self-determination, and along those lines, you know, what I mentioned earlier, like help me to build the reality that I envision. you know, because a lot of times people want to impose their view for what you need to make your life better, which has nothing to do with, you know, who you are or where you plan to be. This is a story I like to tell, but a lot of times people don't understand how the community is a resource when it comes to safety. So we used to have a youth group in Skid Row a few years ago, maybe a decade ago. And we used to go out and do community engagement, like in places where there was a lot of drug activity. So folks used to just post up with their radios and be out there hustling. So we got this idea, oh, we're gonna put a table out there and have music and have young people and talk about community and prevention and upcoming activities. We're gonna post up right next to them. Right, and so what we started doing is just, you know, putting our table in certain locations. So one day we were on 5th and San Pedro, and a fight broke out, and we were completely unaware because we had the music blasting, and the kid, what is this? Oh, you know, the kids, they want a better neighborhood. Okay, so some of the negative, like you were talking about, the negative energy, people start moving. Look, oh, I don't want to be near them. So a fight broke out, and it got pretty heated, so two guys pulled knives on each other. And there was a woman standing there right in the middle just watching to see what was about to happen, and she looked over and she saw kids, and she told the guys, hey, cut it out, there's kids over there. And they stopped a knife fight and put their knives away, and they walked away, you know. This was at the same time when people were saying, oh, there's no place for women and children. And then maybe about 15 minutes later, one of the guys came over and apologized to each one of those children. And nobody knew who he was. He's like, I'm sorry, I don't want y'all to see me like this, I apologize. You know, and they're like, who are you? He's like, oh, I was just fighting a minute ago. Like, they don't even know who you are. So that's a powerful thing when you talk about community, and when you have a vision that a community should be single adults, you know, that takes away that whole protective piece of people being protective of children and the presence of children. People think everybody on Skid Row are predators, and that's not true. People are very defensive and protective of Skid Row. The other thing I would say when we do community events also, when we get on the mic, we ask for mutual cooperation. Like Respected Park, we doing this event, it's for the neighborhood. And there was a few times where some people that used to hustle in the park, they didn't like me telling them, you know, anything. Because like, who is he? He can't tell me. Watch the porta potties, you know. You ain't my boss. And you know, and I was kind of oblivious, but OG did tell me one time, yeah, you know, they want to kill you, Charles. I told him, you can't kill Charles. But by doing that and asking for mutual respect, the people in the park, they enforce the rules in the park. And they're like, oh, nah, you can't do that. They have an event. Nah, you got to take that outside the park. And so that's that whole community piece where, you know, the community plays a role in allowing certain behaviors to happen or not happen. And also engaging folks with severe mental illness in their addiction. It's their peers that are checking them like, nah, you can't do that right here. And the last story I want to say is at the Refresh spot. That for us was a really great project in the sense that it was community design, community driven. But one of the elements when the Refresh spot first opened that was essential was the peer engagement. And so that is a powerful thing when you can have folks that are a part of the community, that are the frontline folks. It's like, hey, how you doing? Welcome. How can we help you? People feel safe when they see somebody they know. Not only that, but we also incorporated music into the space. And so some people, and there's an article in LA Times, and there was some really negative comments like, a culturally sensitive playlist. What does that have to do with hygiene and safety? But music is so powerful, you know, and we consciously created a vibe that connected people. And so, and a lot of people, when we got feedback from folks, it's like, man, we love the music, you know, it makes us feel comfortable, feel good. We don't want to leave the space, you know, it brought me into the space. And so, but those are some of those cultural things that people don't even care or consider that help to create a safe space. You know, this is some place that feels like home. You know, and those are things we got to incorporate in what that's part of the whole decolonization thing, you know, because that creates safety. You know, so that's it.
Thank you. I'm working so powerful, you think. Applaud my thoughts. talk about moving forward, and we talk about mainstream society here in America, the first line of defense, anytime there's a threat to public safety, call the cops. Mainstream society, call the cops. Get the cops. Person looks suspicious, or whatever the situation is, call the cops. In the 60s, the civil rights movement, it was established that there were two Americas, a white America and a black America. When white America says call the cops, it's usually negative for black America. It's a negative experience. You know, this is the reason why Black Lives Matter was even, you know, created recently. They just celebrated their 5th year anniversary last week. And so, you know, because cops show up, black people die, black people get arrested, black people get beat up. You know, it's just negative experience. So how is that public safety for us? When Skid Row, you say, oh, Skid Row is a majority African-American community. Okay, and then we say the powers that be, you know, want the LAPD to enforce, to create ordinances and laws that empower LAPD to go above and beyond to keep the public safe. That means more pressure on us. How do we, moving forward, how do we stop that? And so we recently have a new police chief at LAPD, Chief Michael Moore. And I've taken a proactive position, because, you know, growing up in the hood, it's like, oh, you don't talk to police, you know, it'll come off like you're snitching or whatever it is. We just don't talk to police. They're the enemy. They have this us versus them mentality. So we have to have the same thing. My whole thing is I'm talking to Chief Moore. I want LAPD to do better. If they're going to be the first line of defense, we're going to have to expect more. They're going to have to stand down, back up, and let the leaders in Skid Row lead. Let us do what we do. It's whatever LAPD is doing is not working, not only in Skid Row, but citywide. The country is too divisive right now. The city is divisive. In the streets, a lot of people don't know what's going on in the streets. It's very divisive. Just like earlier today, myself, Pastor Q, and others in this room, you know, we were there at Watts when the Oath Keepers say that, oh, you know, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, oh, she said something to our president. We got to go talk to her. So we lined up. I've been in community meetings from last night for the overnight all the way till today. You know, that's why I was late, you know, pretty much getting here. And so there's this mindset that, okay, LAPD's got to be there. And LAPD said, we're going to stand back and let the community deal with this. Of course, the Oath Keepers didn't show up, but we had a strong representation on the front line. And I'm pretty sure when you go home, you're going to see on the news, we, the people, showed up. And so that's the same mindset for what's going on at Skid Row. And so we're telling LAPD Chief Michael Moore to step back and let us try. Let us do what we do. Let us talk to the people. And so the whole, when I say that, going back when I was talking about 2008, Operation Facelift Skid Row, you know, we put brooms in people's hands. We, you know, do for self. You know, we make this mess. You know, some folks come down, pass out, you know, peanut butter jelly sandwiches or whatever it is, and next thing you know, we eat, and it's just too much high concentration of trash. A lot of people don't feel safe when it's trash in the environment. Taking care of the environment is one of the ways to create, you know, public safety and a positive community. And so, but LAPD would snatch the brooms away, saying that the brooms could be used as a weapon. So whose philosophy is going to be right? LAPD doesn't want trash cans in Skid Row. We put trash cans out there anyway. And it's like our vision of public safety and our safety community where we live, you know, we have to tell LAPD years ago, you guys don't live here, we do. We don't give a damn about what you say, what's gonna happen in our community. And so, you know, now we've got more encouragement, especially through the creating of the Skid Row Neighborhood Council. We're coming. We're empowering the people, and we're going to give power to the people, and we're saying, you know, step back and let us do it. And so LAPD is actually stepping back. They said, what do you need? We need trash bags, we need gloves, we need brooms, you know, let's clean it up, let's give this a whole different look. And if it can happen successfully in Skid Row, it can happen citywide, which will be all best for the entire society.
I think I'll be really brief. And Becky, it was something you said, and I think where I'm going to now, especially working in Santa Monica, is how do you turn the mirror the opposite way? So in a lot of discussions, people are concerned about people experiencing homelessness and the homelessness crisis. And so I've been really flipping the conversation with grace, not with anger and not judgmental, but really trying to make sure I'm grounded and turn it into a conversation of grace and saying, why is it that we're allowing homelessness? Why is it that we're saying no to housing in certain communities or services? And why is it now that the visibility of homelessness has spread, particularly, tents are in different neighborhoods? Why is that making us uncomfortable, and what can we do? And so I don't know exactly how to do it, but it's how do you engage community? We've had the Women's March, we had the Keeping the Children Together March, and all of this. So if this is a moment in time where people are open, I guess I'm trying to figure out, is it possible to build on that and just keep the dialogue going in a more honest way?
There's a story that I'm reminded of as we talk about creative ways to deal with the community. Being in Skid Row, one of the stories I always tell at the police commission, I've been in Skid Row for 12 years as a pastor of the church without walls. I've never had to shoot anybody. Right? One time there was two guys who were fighting, and one dude pulled out a knife, and he was like, "I'm going to kill you." And he was ready to kill this other dude, and I stepped right in between them. I stopped my sermon, I was preaching, I stopped the sermon, walked right in between them, and I go, "Why do you want to kill him?" He said, "I'm going to kill him because he owed me money." I said, "How much money does he owe you, and does he have the money?" He goes, "He ain't got the money, so he got to die." I said, "How much money does he owe you?" He says, $40. I said, "Anybody in the church got $40? So they got $40. I said, "I'm buying his freedom from you." And when I gave him the money, he still wanted to kill him. I said, "First of all, either you're going to kill him and give me back my money, or you're going to take the money and you're going to leave." He took the money and he left. And I said, "Don't let me hear you messing with him." That's community policing. And that's a way we can reimagine public safety. So I'm saying you have tools in your toolbox, but a lot of us don't want to hustle, we don't want to struggle, we don't want to sacrifice in order to discover those tools.
Take a couple more last comments because I want to make sure we have time for everyone else. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So in addressing our public safety and moving forward, most definitely we have to address white male patriarchy in this country, on Skid Row and abroad. It continues to paint the black man as public enemy number one, right? When I go in the store, why do the security guards automatically take off following behind me? Right? When I walk down the street, why I'm the one to get the police spotlight, right? This is the same thing that killed Trayvon Martin, right? It's the same thing that started the Black Lives Matter movement, right? And when you look at the real dynamics of this country, who's really doing the violence, we see who's shooting up the schools. We see who's shooting up the concerts, right? And it ain't us, right? But yet, do you ever hear them talking about white identity extremists? Hell no. It don't even exist, right? And so, and moving forward, we have to address this. And it's going to take white folks to talk to white folks, first and foremost. I like folks like black people for, white people for Black Lives. You know what I'm saying? It's setting a good example. But it's going to take other white folks, walk up to the white folks and say, no, we don't, I don't feel like that. That is not it. Right?
They can take a nap in the hall.
There you go, brother. All that. And so that's going to be one of the serious problems addressing moving.
Let's go to the crowd. We go. Just want to make sure anyone wanted to weigh in on this question.
Well, I'm white.
Are you? No.
Just to make that clear.
Blonde hair, blue eyes too.
It's sort of a joke, but it's like super important to acknowledge and, be like, there's a lot of things that come with that. And the question you asked about kind of what are you going to do in the future, it's just what Dogon said is I have a certain amount of access to certain people who are a huge part of the problem right now. As a matter of fact, particularly people who meet my profile who are white, middle class, middle-aged women seem to have a thing going on right now. So I definitely want to have those conversations, but also hope to do it in more of an organized fashion, like with groups like Surge and White People for Black Lives and things like that, tapping into that, but also within my field, right? Because it seems to be a field that's pretty, actually disproportionately full of that same profile. So there's an opportunity. White folks. White women, in particular. But I just want to say, and I think part of that conversation to have with them is, it goes back to what the pastor said about reimagining public safety, that we've got to reimagine what that means. I think the way to, or an important part of reimagining public safety is reimagining what the threat is. Because the opposite of safety, I think, is threat, or you could say it's a risk or violence, or, but if you see the threat to your safety as, say, a black man, well, you're going to have a certain idea of then what public safety means. Everybody, being never having to see a black man, and but if you're talking about there's a whole lot of other threats that are actually much more urgent for people, that put them at risk, and some of those threats are gentrification, are eviction, including eviction and displacement that occurs as a result of it. Law enforcement itself is a threat, as a lot of people have talked about, and makes people, it actually reduces public safety for some communities. Depends on, again, your definition of the public, right? Poverty is violence. For some people, it's a much more of everyday violent aspect of their life than like somebody coming at them with a gun, or the other ways people imagine what violence is, So I think that there's this like tunnel vision about what it means to be safe. When you look around you think about other experiences, other communities, or even your own, and there's all these other ways you're not safe. You're not safe from losing your job, if you're not in a union, or if you're, in certain unprotected classes. Sorry, you're not safe from losing your home, et cetera, et cetera. So I think part of it is really starting to talk about, well, what is safety? And what do we want to be, what's most important to be safe from? And what are the real most imminent threats that directly impact our lives right now? Not the idea of, or imagery of what we think of as a scary thing. Mm-hmm. So.
Are we passing this around?
Are we opening the questions?
Open it up.
I don't mind starting with the first question.
Go ahead.
Microphone. You want the microphone?
I'll be loud. Hi, my name's Leon. Chris Max, a good friend of mine. I first wanted to say it's really interesting to hear the stories from Pastor Q and Charles about community policing, your specific stories, which are really powerful. And I want to appreciate that, but then ask the question for the circle, which is, it seems like there's different levels of the system that we have to educate about community policing. And from what I'm guessing and what I'm assessing here is that we have within the community, which most of those people are in this room, and we're already educating by having these kind of meetings. So thank you guys for doing this. And so the question is, how do we educate more on this level? And the next level I see is the gentrification community. The people that are moving in, that we can't control. How can we at least tell them, now that you're here, here's some protocol. Here's, which you guys responded to right now, about white people have to talk to white people, and that's true. And I appreciate that. So I just wanted to hear more about a systematic addressing of this, a manual that we could come up with. And then I was thinking that the next level is not the government system, but the social system. Generally, you talked about the nonprofit profiteers, right? And then within that, I have a secondary question is, they bring in not only people to work for the community, but they're also bringing in volunteerism. And I'm always thinking about how do we educate volunteers in the programs that I'm a part of. And I'm thinking, shouldn't we start to ask those social services to think of Black Lives Matter as part of the protocol of volunteerism when you come into this community? As be part of the, because volunteers, when they come into Midnight Mission, they sign something, they read something. Couldn't we start systematically integrating the education of community policing even into the volunteers that are starting to integrate with our community? And then the next and last, of course, is the government, which LA Can speaks to better than anybody about how to make a difference there. I don't know anything about that. But those seem to be the 4 levels. Here, gentrification, social services / volunteerism, and government. So I don't know how you guys want to respond about addressing how we address each different community.
How much time you have?
Do you want to take more questions first and then?
James is kind of getting too, so actually let me take 2 more, and then maybe people can respond to a variety of questions. Go ahead.
I'm going to have a public safety issue if I don't get my sister from the airport. So I'm going to say,
There's some violence coming.
There's some violence coming. But I gotta say this, and first of all, I want to begin by saying, you know, I'm very, I'm extremely touched by what I've heard in this room.
Can we give him the mic?
You know,
I know he can talk about
yeah, I can talk.
I'm extremely touched by what I've heard in this room, but when I hear about, whenever I'm hearing discussions or involved in discussions about Black people, I'm stuck. And I'm stuck because it seems to me, and this is a question that I asked at the policy school, and I saw policy, and they're like, oh, wow, planning. When I saw the planning school at USC, I had an opportunity to talk to this guy who's a planning guru. And I said, you know, I ran off all the problems, you know, racism and all the problems happening in our community. And he said to me, and I was upset by his response, he said, James, it just takes money. I don't know why y'all asking for all this stuff. You just need to ask for money. And I was upset because that's not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear all these super proposals about, you know, I want to hear all this social science stuff. Money. What I'm stuck at is, I can't even think about an honorable America who refuses to pay the people who built this prosperity what they are due. There would be no Skid Row if there were reparations. And so I think, and people don't like it.
Wait, you're reimagining public safety though.
I'm reimagining public safety. This is how I reimagine it. Because the safest places, the safest communities,
come on, he's a reverend now. Watch.
Are the ones where the rich folk live.
That's right.
They're not profiled in those communities. Crime is low in those communities, and even every now and then when they commit a crime, they tend to get off and people don't protest. And so what I'm saying is this, is that in the process of reimagining what public safety means with what community means, we cannot ignore the fact, and I'll use Pete as an example, and this and the mayor here. Suppose the mayor of Skid Row was making $100,000 to $200,000 to do what he does. We would all be free. And so it's important to understand that, suppose Dogon, and I don't know what anybody is making, but what I'm saying is that at some point, we have to realize that in order for us to be healthy in those 3 areas, we're going to need some finances. And we're going to need some finances. And I'm a firm believer, and I'm done because I got to go. My sister's going to kill me.
Pastor Q will jump in front of you.
Okay, hang on. I guess gonna let,
right.
Did you have your hand up? What? Did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and, and then I'm bringing them in a circle, and then we're going to wrap up. Go ahead.
Okay. I have 3 comments. Public safety means poverty is violence. I totally disagree with that. Just because you're poor doesn't necessarily mean you're violent. this society is a violent goddamn society, and they're making money off of violence, selling guns, and going to war all over the world. There's no violence worse than that. And and the person that said community policing is the solution, no. If the community policing is controlled by the police, it is not. The police is there to protect those that have the super rich, the people that are benefiting from this society. And well, anyway, it's impossible under this system, capitalism, that public safety is for everyone, because public safety, in my view, for a lot of poor people is not being criminalized and being pushed into the prison system, which is a big money maker for certain people, certain capitalists. So, you know, there's a whole lot of issues.
Okay, I'm going to take Lee, and then it's going to come to Q, and anyone else who has less.
Lee. Oh.
Hello, my name is Lee. I work up in here with my boss, Henrietta and John. Thank you very much. They're very beautiful people. Look here, I'm standing by this man right now because I've been sitting up here listening about public safety, and we need public safety downtown. And when I mention this because this man is doing so much to get this done down here on 5th and 6th Street. That's them bike lanes, you know, and it's really messed up how it is down. That would be a whole lot of, I ain't heard nobody mention that, but that's some safety too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because I don't drive a car. Never really did, really. You know, I like to ride my beach cruiser. You know, and it's people, look, it messed me up because the border is 3rd. You go on the other side of 3rd, there's a bike lane. Go here, Main, same way. On the other side of the street, it's one way. They got two on 8th streets leaving, and they got 2 one-way streets going. And so, why don't they put bike lanes in down there, down those streets, 5th and 6th? And Mr. Dogon here is such a beautiful man. He organized all those bike lanes and all that old stuff, and for people to go out there and ride. I'm known as roadblock because I block the cars when we go through this intersection. Thank you. But this man, y'all ought to give him a good hand, big hand. Because he works hard every day. Every day. Yeah, okay. And I'm going to get off the microphone now, you know what I'm saying? You know, I put on my show last night.
Oh, sorry. I want to check.
I think,
Go ahead. I'll do
you
that.
know, I can't even begin to address your issue, right? I think because that's a whole can of worms right now. We ain't got time to really go into that. But again, every issue that we talk about goes back to that decolonization, right? What Kay is talking about, or what Pastor James was talking about, it goes back to decolonization, because you're not going to think about reparations if you think like the colonizer, because the colonizer think they're giving you something when you talk about reparations. To deal with Skid Row, we need reparations in housing. We need to undo redlining. We need to undo what the FHA did when they created Lakewood, when they created Brentwood, when they created Your Hood. We need to do something about what they did when they made all of these laws that black folks, white folks who live in those neighborhoods can't sell houses to black folks, and so we got ghetto. So in order to do anything about public safety and to deal with crime in the ghetto, when I'm talking about decolonization, I'm talking about stuff like that. And some of you white folks will have to give up some of that money you have.
We don't want it all.
Can I answer one of his questions?
Yes. And then I'm gonna
I'm talking about the ones who really have money. I'm not saying, I don't know what your situation is. You basically are just as broke as me. I
we
don't
could
know.
collectively give up plenty of money. Dogon, then Adrian, and then I'll try to close.
So I'm gonna attempt to answer one of your questions. How do we educate folks? Right? And so for me, all the time I talk to the new downtown, right? I talk to them in bars, which is a good place to socialize and meet. But I talk to them nevertheless. And when I talk to them, believe it or not, they have no idea in hell what's going on. No idea in hell what's going on. All their information is coming from the downtown newspaper, right? And probably some of the D-Link and some of the other little meetings that they have going on downtown. We done already been to some of these come meet cop meetings downtown, come have coffee with a cop. Some of these meetings that D-Link holding, community meeting on homelessness. But ain't all the folks that's there at the meeting is their loss.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So we already know what they're talking about, right? So it's that false, fake narrative, you know what I'm saying, that's coming around that they don't really tell a real story. They don't talk about how the city, you know what I'm saying, is not like, for example, the Triple H situation. Right now, it's off the hook, right? I ain't gonna go into that, but people, there's money there. The only thing they know is that, oh, it's this guy that's hanging out my building every time I come out, or a tent is over here every time I come out. But they don't understand or know about the politics of it. And once they find out the politics and how the money is being stolen and how people is just intentionally being criminalized, then they turn our way. They be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm rolling with you. So the job is to go and educate them because they don't know. The majority of them don't know. Because they don't have time to go to City Hall, go to the homeless community meeting. You know, they don't get their information from the horse's mouth. They get it from D-Link and the downtown newspaper, right? Which objective is to run people out of here, right? And so you can't listen to the wolf, you know, if you want the truth.
Whoa, runaway mic. Runaway mic. Mic. Someone drop the mic.
Give it to him.
Because he hasn't had that much time.
Yeah, I appreciate all of y'all information, but my question is that, like, I hear a lot of things. I want to hear what's good right now. What's going on is good. I hear about all the stuff that's not so good and all the complaints. What all of y'all been doing it for a while? It seems like everybody that's been up here has been doing what y'all doing for a while. So what have changed? What have y'all seen that keep y'all going? You know what I mean? Because I don't think if you guys never seen any improvement, y'all would still be fighting the battle that y'all fighting. So I want to hear some of the victories. I want to hear some of the improvements that has happened and what it is y'all wish to continue to happen for the community to govern itself, for the future plans to fit Skid Row. What you know what I mean? What is this happening that's good? It can't be all negative, is it? Because what's the point if it's all bad?
Chris.
I want to give it back to Chris, but I will just say sometimes you got to keep fighting, even when there aren't any victories, because otherwise you start losing.
No, we have so many good things going on, and see, this is where this general body needs to get involved. One is the Skid Row Community Formation Committee. That one right there is a very powerful platform that needs to be continued and addressed, which it is continuing. But it is one of the platforms that addresses a lot of the things that you're talking about as far as safety, decolonization, because it's coming up from the aspect of having the communities say so in its own self-determinance. Another thing that's going on is the refresh spot. And what makes it so wonderful is that it's another platform for engagement for the community, which means that people can donate hygiene kits and all those things, but they can also come to the refresh spot and see how the community has responded to some of its needs, because it was an answer to criminal neglect that had been for 30 years. And not only when they removed the toilets, they didn't put anything in its place. And so there's a lot of great things happening on Skid Row. Like I said, I cried for 2 years walking down the street looking at the condition of humanity, and then understanding that, you know, we do rise above all of this stuff. And so, like I said, the thing that makes it so great for me is that I'm able to be and interact with a lot of people in this room when they have certain campaigns, and, you know, when they have great ideas and they continue to be consistent. And so I think that one of the things, this is great stuff. You know, when you see people and you see people walk over dead people, I don't see people walk over people who are laying on the sidewalk dead. And yet, you know, when I found out that people were getting up and starting to live meaningful lives for themselves, then you know what, I keep walking. But I did teach me one thing: never walk over a man laying down without seeing if he's breathing. Because I think it's egregious when, you know, you have that little respect for humanity, or human life. And so there's a lot of wonderful things, because there's a lot of wonderful men and women in this room that I'm out there and I have the privilege of seeing. I walked Skid Row for 15 years. I'm not around sitting in an old building. I walk the streets. You know, that's how I became a shitologist.
I think we are, yes?
I see your hand though.
I know, okay, but I just want to respect people's time. So I keep saying
Yes.
this, but we'll take the hand in the back. I know Jeff wants to say one last thing. And then people can stay and converse, but I'm going to close. Yes, sir.
I'll speak loudly.
All right.
First off, to address, there are a lot of great things happening. Urban Voices, for one, many great projects in Skid Row. I want to talk a little bit about, I came to Skid Row a different way. It wasn't drug use. It was society as an artist, going through an illness, not having enough savings. And I feel like there are lots of people who come to Skid Row that way. And more and more, I'm seeing more and more of my peers who are saying, I can't thrive, I don't know what to do, I know this is where I'm supposed to be. And I just want to promote and say that arts and culture, what Hayk was talking about, is so important to the soul of this community and the soul of Los Angeles in general. And there's got to be a way to me, when I walk down the street and I hear not just singing, but brilliant singing, not just playing, but brilliant playing, there's got to be a way to me to connect this industry that has all this money. We live in we live in the entertainment capital of the world. And for the entertainment capital of the world to have any great artists unable to survive and thrive, I think is a problem. And so I just wanted to put out that there is another population that I'm seeing really pop up more and more in Skid Row, and that it needs to be addressed.
So I'm gonna have Jeff close because he's had his hand up a couple of times and he's been missed. I do want to just say there's a lot of people in the room that I don't know that didn't speak up, so I don't want to assume anything about you. But I would say connect with people after this. To anybody, I think that the idea that all of us need to be really active, no matter in what community we live in what community we work in. And I just want to say that Q's right. You can't always step in the same way. But I've lived in Los Angeles for 25 years. I've also never had to shoot someone, stab someone, and never even had to call the police. And I've stepped in on numerous occasions, and can't agree more with Charles that actually people appreciate it. Maybe not right in the moment, but after the fact. And so I really urge people to take more action than you are taking. We cannot change. That public safety isn't all about the police state, but it is the biggest threat is the police state. So for folks who didn't speak up or need to connect, please do after this. And we will close out.
Thank you, Becky. Such a wonderful moderation of this panel. I just want to say this I'm speaking as an individual. So I don't want to attach this to any organization, what have you, but everybody in America has a mental illness. I will say that again. Every single person living in America has a mental illness. Some people can function better than others. Some people struggle mightily. The reason why I say this is, at the core basis of what America is or supposed to be, On one hand, you have capitalism. On the other hand, you have equality. It can't be both.
Yeah.
That's the problem with every fundamental structure in America. Is it capitalism, or is it equality? Some people say, oh, you know, we all should live in harmony, and everything should be this equal and fair and just society. Well, that sounds good, but what's going on is capitalism. When you think about Skid Row there will never be equality in Skid Row because capitalist society is eating, America is eating its own, it's eating itself. And there are a lot of people that are profiting greatly. When I mentioned the poverty pimps, a lot of people are profiting greatly off of the demise of others. There's a lot of people in white America, and it's not about skin color, it's about a mindset. There's a lot of people in white America that are profiting greatly off the demise of black America. When we talk about mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex, there's a homeless industrial complex. You know, when they talk about dumbing down the masses with significantly cutting the education budgets, and on and on and on and on. And so then, you know, the kids drop out of high school, they have to turn to a life of crime just to survive. There are no kids that grow up and say, hey, little kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a drug dealer in Skid Row. I want to. No one says that. That's not realistic. But sometimes that's by choice in order to survive. Why is that? Because the capitalist society has reduced them to that point because there are others that are profiting off of them. And so then when America has to look at itself in the mirror and say, well, I'm having a wonderful life. How many people did you profit off of? How many people are struggling? It's a seesaw. You know, it's a scale. One side goes up, the other side goes down. And so if America truly wants to heal, or it has to truly define itself, it has to look in the mirror and be honest. That hasn't happened yet. Thank you.